How are you?
Yeah, well, thanks, mate. How are you? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's so weird to hear Aussie accents. I'm so used to hearing Vietnamese people.
Right. I've been listening to all of the sessions and it's so weird. It's actually making me feel really homesick, especially too because I'm hearing about all the fun after parties where everyone's catching up and having a great time.
I'm just sorry everyone. I'm just trying to find Vinod in.
Yes, I'm here, Amy.
Yeah, you made it. Thank you so much. I was looking for you in the attendees and I'm so glad to see you. Oh, okay.
Finally here, yes.
Yes, I'm going to, and we are recording. Fantastic. I'm going to start with the introduction. Thank you all of our attendees for being so patient. Welcome to the discussion all about the hottest topic in blockchain NFTs, ready for the mainstream. I'd like to introduce first Vinod Tiwari from Everledger. He's going to present on peer-to-peer swapping solar for slabs on the blockchain. And then following this, we're going to hear from Ben Fairbank, Kieran Warwick, Louise Mercer, and Leah Cullen, who are going to be talking on the NFTs panel. Take the stage, guys. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Amy Rose, and good afternoon to everyone. Thanks for the kind introductions, Amy. It's really great to be in your company and be speaking on such an exciting topic, peer-to-peer. For any sustainability manager, sourcing green energy is a difficult balance to achieve. On one hand, companies need to procure electricity at an affordable rate. On the other, companies also need to make sure its credentials are solid enough for when the media starts scrutinizing what they're doing. So this balance between perception, reality, and finance of getting green energy has never been easy. But Carbon United Brewery in Australia is trying a new option through its VB Solar Exchange, or peer-to-peer. Yes, it's not a theoretical concept, it's real, and it's happening here in Australia. You might have seen driving down Southern Cross Drive to Sydney Airport, big billboard claiming this week your solar could earn you 5.8 beers. This is part of a multi-million-dollar advertising campaign launched by Carbon United Breweries, and it heralds a radically new approach to sourcing green electricity called loyalty peer-to-peer energy trading. Let me play a very short audio from their campaign as to what this really looks like. Okay, there we go.
At the moment, your solar panels generate energy to power most things in your home. But when it comes to the energy that's left over, there's often only one thing you can do with it. Sell it to the grid for a fixed price. The VB Solar Exchange changes this by giving you the option to exchange your solar energy with us for beer. That's right. For the first time ever, you can now send your excess solar energy to VB. And for every $30 of energy you give us, we'll give you a slab of beer.
Oh, there you go. So this is happening. What that ad is suggesting and the billboards are asking people to do is sign up for a deal where they will be supplying the brewery their excess rooftop solar electricity in exchange for beer, tracked and validated on Everledger blockchain platform. The launch of the program follows Asahi's acquisition of Carbon United Brewery in 2020. The program is part of Asahi's ambitious sustainability agenda, which includes a goal to be powered entirely by 100% renewable energy by 2025. The VB Solar Exchange has been developed, of course, in partnership with electricity retailers, and Everledger is a bigger part of it. Our executive chairman, Dr. Gemma Green, says, well, it's a beautifully simple idea that achieves many things in one go. There are so many different ways to source energy, but when you drill down to it, they all come with issues and complications. This one has almost none, and it comes with a huge upside, which is brand engagement. the brand, in this case, VB, gets to engage with their customers on a whole other level. They can stop talking about being sustainable and just start demonstrating it by buying their customers' solar electricity. As we know, customers are increasingly scrutinizing the basis of claims of renewableness of the brands that they're buying. And this is becoming a real challenge for those brands. More and more, there is a disconnect in the eyes of public between the way energy and its green credentials get traded in highly complex, often quite circuitous and abstract ways. There is therefore an opportunity for brands to address this issue, the issue of trust in the way they engage with their customers. What loyalty peer-to-peer energy trading does is turn that challenge into an opportunity. By taking that level of interest and using it to get customers to do the work of a solar farm, for example, and provide a good proportion of the very electricity the brewery needs to make. Companies can, of course, produce the electricity themselves, but that requires significant amount of roof space, photovoltaics, or wind turbines. Maybe other options to buy the output from a solar farm. But buying all power from this kind of source can come with certain risks, where a company can end up paying for the electricity even when it's not using all of it, and may also be exposed to variations in the market prices for electricity. So for all those reasons, using one's customers' excess rooftop solar for some of the company's power needs makes so much sense. Like many really good ideas, one might ask why it hasn't been done before. And part of the answer is that the arrival of blockchain, which helps make the numerous small transactions between various parties economical to do. Before, it would have been too expensive. The accounting and settlement process is based on blockchain and allows the participants to do what is quite an extensive and complex piece of accounting instantaneously and without the aid of any bank or trusted party. As our co-founder and technical director, John Bullock, says, you can try to do it without blockchain, but it doesn't work cost efficiently. And there is always a danger that your system may get hacked or get corrupted, which means that blockchain technology is key to decentralized energy trading really working. Certainly the public like the blockchain part of it, almost like it's become a brand in itself. Participants can log in at any time and find out just how much electricity they have produced for the brewery and how much beer they have accrued in return. And it's not long after they've provided the electricity that a van pulls up outside their house to deliver them the slabs of beer. That's your beer to peer. They can always even see how many stubbies they have acquired each day, how they're tracking against other participants, and even how their entire state is tracking against other states. Maybe the connection between cold beer and solar electricity is a particularly intuitive and strong one, but it's hard not to imagine that many other consumer goods and services brands are looking to peer-to-peer as a way of solving their energy procurement headaches in the future. For example, telecoms, supermarkets, fashion stores, hospitality, restaurants, food and beverages sectors are all now expressing an interest. Thinking back to the heady days of 1990s, loyalty programs were all predicated on air miles and burning fossil fuel in a conspicuous way. Loyalty programs, of course, have come a long way since then. Whatever happens, it's going to be an exciting space to watch. So I'll close by saying that peer-to-peer is just one example of how blockchain can enable such proactive brand engagement. It doesn't just have to be electricity or kilowatt hours for beer. It can very well be, or can also be, kilowatt hours for mobile minutes, or for internet data, or for credits for a new phone, or kilowatt hours for plane seats, or kilowatt hours in exchange of French macarons, or any goods at your local supermarket. The potential is immense. And we are fully geared up to unlock that potential with our blockchain platform. So thank you once again for inviting me to share our thoughts on this exciting topic. If you have time, happy to take any questions. Back to you, Emiros.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful and intriguing. I would like to pass over to the NFT panel. Thank you very much for listening, and you can follow Vinod in the share links over in the chat.
Thank you so much, Vinod and Amy Rose. I've got to say, Vinod, that was a fantastic presentation combining some of my favorite things, blockchain for social impact and beer. So what a wonderful way to begin. So I'd just like to begin by saying that we acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. So just a bit of housekeeping first, a few important things to know. Please, speakers, just make sure that all of your microphones are on mute. I can see they are now, which is great, thank you. And we are recording the session. And also, anyone who's watching, please type into the chat, let us know who you are, where you're from. We'd love to hear from you. Very interesting to see who out there in the world of blockchain Australia is interested in NFTs. So thank you, Kieran, Ben and Louise for joining us today. We've got Kieran Warwick from Illuvium, Ben Fairbank from RedFOX Labs and Louise Mercer from Everledger. We're going to have a fantastic discussion today. I just want to start off by sharing something with you. So if you don't know me, my name's Leah Callon-Butler, and I am the director of Emfarsis. We're a consulting company that is very interested in the role of technological advancement in economic development across Asia. I am Australian, but I'm currently in the Philippines. And just recently, we were working on a project which was about NFT gaming in the Philippines. We were planning this project in December and we rolled it out in January, and we made a very specific decision to ensure that we didn't use the word NFT at all in this project. It was meant to be for a very general audience. We wanted to invite non-crypto people to join this conversation. And so I think in this entire project, we said blockchain once and Ethereum once, no NFTs. Now we've been working on this for a few months, and by March, the world was a different place. It had gone into complete and utter meltdown over NFTs. We had some of the biggest media publications in the world publishing headlines all about this new technology. And I'd have to say that probably has something to do with the price. In Q1 of 2021, NFT sales were over $2 billion. We saw particular projects, like you probably saw the $69 million Beeple artwork that was sold. And we also had things like NBA Top Shots, which is an NFT collectibles project. They were doing well over $300 million in sales volume. All this for something that people had never heard of but a few months earlier. Oh, and of course, we've even got the likes of Paris Hilton, who's on board now too. So, you know, I can understand why people are suggesting it's in a hype cycle. But I think what's interesting about this conversation is that it's actually really spurred this fascinating discussion from my normie friends about the idea of this, of true digital rights and what is digital ownership. Because I think the prevailing idea is still that digital things have no value. And the people who have been in the NFT space for a while are really challenging that. And I think as people spend more and more of their lives online, we're actually going to start valuing our digital assets just as much as we do our real world assets. And of course, I'm not just talking about currencies, I'm talking about representations of other kinds of things. So without further ado, I want to throw over to our panel. And I'd like to start with Kieran, if I may. So you might recognize Kieran's surname. He is the younger brother of Kane Warwick, who we heard from earlier today, the founder of Synthetics. But Kieran is a co-founder of a game, an NFT game called Illuvium. It's this incredible cinematic quality game where players battle these beautiful fantasy creatures called Illuvia, and they're NFTs themselves. Last month, Illuvium announced they'd raised a $5 million seed. Incredible, given that there isn't necessarily a lot of investment happening in the blockchain space in Australia. And then just a couple of weeks ago, they also launched the largest ever balancer liquidity pool by volume. They had over $90 million in traded volume and over $38 million raised into their DAO, which is a decentralized autonomous organization, if you're not familiar with the acronym. So congratulations, Kieran, that is absolutely incredible. My question to you
so
is,
much.
my question to you is, for those who have been in the NFT space for years, and, indeed those coming from the gaming world instead of inside the blockchain bubble, they're really saying that the pathway to adoption for NFTs is gaming, and that could ultimately be mass scale adoption for crypto. Can you talk a little bit about that and explain why people are suggesting that NFT gaming is really going to take crypto main scale, or mass scale, I should say?
Sure. So I think the biggest reason that people are so bullish on how gaming in NFTs can bring such mass scale adoption to crypto in general is purely because of the addressable market. You've literally got 2.5 billion gamers out there, and if you all of a sudden present them with a game that is of the same quality as mainstream games that are out there, like your Fortnites and your World of Warcrafts, if you can all of a sudden do that, then you become on the radar for these mainstream games, the mainstream influencers that have millions and millions of followers. But I think it's probably important to talk about the reasons why it hasn't happened up until this point, because we still have very good titles in DeFi right now, and certainly other blockchains have fantastic titles out there. But there's been the main pain point that has been there has been that there hasn't been these layer 2 solutions out there. And what the big difference between a mainstream game and a decentralized game is, right now unless you're on a layer 2, and hats off to a couple of the DeFi projects that have already moved into that. Some are creating their own, some are utilizing some like we have, which is Immutable X. But the biggest thing that these layer 2s fix is the transaction speed. So when you're looking to, in our game, for example, there's battling, there's minting of shards, there's travel fees. And if you're trying to do all of these in-game things, which to a mainstream gamer is simply, it's just normal. They just want to be able to have a very smooth experience. Instead of that, in DeFi right now, or in crypto, you've got MetaMask popping up over and over and over again. And then once it pops up, you've got to confirm your transaction, and depending on the congestion in the network at the time, you could be sitting there waiting for 2 or 3 minutes for your transaction to go through. And at that stage, the user experience, regardless of how good your graphics are, regardless of how good the backstory of your game is and how excited people are to play, it's just too big of a roadblock. And I think in 2021, there's so many of these amazing layer 2 solutions that are coming out. It really allows the games to shine, because you're taking away those blockers. And then really at that point, with those removed, all it takes is someone coming out with a game that mainstream gamers consider to be on the same level, and then all of a sudden there's no reason why you wouldn't come across. And I think this is something that a lot of the people in DeFi, a lot of top founders are gamers themselves. Most people have gamed at some stage, and I think they're gunning for this to happen. And it's really only a matter of time. If it's not us, it's definitely going to be someone else. And so that's why I think people are so bullish on games being the thing that brings that mass adoption. And also a finance protocol, while I think they're cool, and obviously Kane's probably listening, he's got his own finance protocol, they are cool, but to the mass audiences out there, it's kind of not a huge thing and an exciting thing. So that's why I think, yeah.
Just a really quick follow-up question on that. I think this idea of owning digital things, some people are still trying to wrap their head around it, but a lot of people have pegged gamers as the ones to adopt first, because to them it's, this idea of spending money on a virtual good or a virtual asset isn't foreign. People have been spending money on things like skins in World of Warcraft or League of Legends for a really long time, but they never actually had true ownership of these items. So, what is it about a gamer's mindset that gets really excited about this idea of decentralized virtual assets?
Well, things become provably rare. You can verify that a digital asset is yours on the blockchain. It's the decentralized part of it means that the player actually has custody over that asset at all times. It's literally in your wallet. If there's multiple platforms that you can go on to sell your assets, and so you talk to people who think 500, 1,000, 10,000, if you're crazy like our other brother Aaron, who plays League of Legends. If you don't enjoy playing that game after 12 months, that's kind of it. Your assets are sitting in there. There are secondary markets in like World of Warcraft and stuff where you can do that, but there's been nothing until NFTs have really come along. There's been no way to verify which digital asset you have, and I think once that is solved for these gamers, and they you show them the idea of play to earn, and as soon as that is your asset and you can sell it whenever you want, that's super exciting because it's never been possible for them. And so, and now it is.
Yeah, and play to earn is an amazing concept. Hopefully we'll get time to cover it in this panel. But I'd love to throw over to Ben now. So anyone who hasn't met Ben before, he's the CEO of RedFOX Labs, which is based in Vietnam. He is Aussie, but he's been based in Asia since about 2009, I think, Ben. He actually moved Virgin Mobile from Australia to the Philippines. So we've had a few good chats about knowledge of the Philippine market and also gaming adoption here in Southeast Asia. But RedFOX Labs, his company, they're behind Cogs. It's a digital collectibles game, just like the old school slammer game, Pogs. But it's a great example of how game designers are bringing a whole range of blockchain concepts together, such as, you got everything in there, cross-chain interoperability, DeFi, play-to-earn gaming, which we just mentioned, and NFTs to create these brand new experiences and also completely new business models. So Ben, I wanted to ask, I think we've looked at gaming and that's really just the beginning. There's so many imaginative use cases emerging for NFTs and the application potential is just massive. Gaming, collectibles, art, music. But from what I hear from you, big brands around the world are actually taking notice too. And I was just wondering if you'd be willing to share with us a little bit more about how your company is harnessing that opportunity to help bring traditional players into what is now known as the Metaverse or virtual worlds.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. First of all, I can give you an example which is local to where you are as well, because we're based in Vietnam. We started out a couple of years ago with the idea of cogs, which is keys to other games. And we thought that if the game pieces, and much was Kieran was just talking about, being able to take those pieces and be able to use them in a number of games. 2 years ago, we thought that was a really good use case, and it still is. And that's coming to the fore now. But what we've done is, as we're about to launch a metaverse, so a world, we were really into the e-commerce streaming and cashback. It's a massive industry here in Southeast Asia, particularly China, $63 billion a year back in 2019. COVID's given that a real push. So when we created a metaverse, which we're about to roll out, the buildings in the metaverse are actually NFTs. All the assets inside of the building are NFTs as well. So the example that I give is Kanye West could release a line of wearables or NFTs. He could fill an NFT store full of those products and then sell them to a third party who would be a licensed distributor and be able to sell those on to other people. So what we decided was, with the push, that we'd build a world with 120 shops It's got 4 different quarters, all themed very differently. We've got a gaming theme, a music theme, an actual art theme, and then a very open plan type of theme. And it's an amazing world that we're just about to release. And we love the concept. We got to combine everything we're doing in the NFT space. But then big brands started coming and saying, hang on, we've lost a lot of that interactivity. Websites are very static. We need to have some sort of more immersive experience and engaging experience with our customers. So what can we do? Now, as they started getting a little bit of a sniff and a whiff of what NFTs were doing, they were interested in, first of all, how they could capitalize from that, how they could actually enter the market. But once we get talking to them and we start saying an NFT isn't just a piece of art or a way for you to be able to sell a standard item, once they started hearing what we could actually do. Now, for example, on a local level, if we roll out our virtual space in Vietnam, a person could walk into a virtual food court, order a hamburger, anime themed, from a cloud kitchen, and then have that real world item delivered to their doorstep. Now, we use NFTs as forms of receipts. We also have video production content, much the same as you'd see on like a TikTok. You could actually buy that through an NFT. So you buy the IP and the rights for that. So that sort of started to really spark interest. Then we've got into events like car racing. We've got lots of different things that we're going to be doing in our world that will roll out, where people can actually have sponsorship that brings in traditional players into the space. And a lot of people are starting to actually see the segue and the understanding that COVID has really sort of made people stay inside. And as I say, lost that interactivity. And we want to provide a really immersive experience that combines gaming, DeFi, the world of NFTs together. And to give you an indication of how it works in the Philippines, Biahi, the new transportation company, started by the co-founder of Grab, Zalora, and Gojek. We're talking to them in relation to NFTs ownership of the new jeepneys. So they're going in for new transport vehicles that are green and lean. And now you can use an NFT to actually potentially buy one of these vehicles and then benefit from the profits that come through that. And that's led to our RedFOX token being looked at as a form of payment for all of the public transport. So it's really, really starting to come together. And now we've got a few more big brands we can't name just yet due to NDA that are coming into the space and really starting to show their interest.
That's amazing. I mean, I just love the amount of creativity and imagination that's coming out of this space. And I think too, you know, when you're talking about selling digital cars via NFTs, that's actually something that some people in the Australian blockchain community have had a bit of exposure to, because I know that Animoca Brands actually auctioned off one of their F1 Delta Time cars for charity to support the Bushfire Alliance, which had been put up, organised by the crypto community in Australia, which is awesome. But I think a big theme too throughout Australian Blockchain Week has been really kind of getting the Australian blockchain community to think about the huge potential and, you know, if we don't act fast, you know, what we could miss out on. And I just want to ask you, Ben, you know, you're based in Vietnam, you're not in Australia. Could you talk a little bit about why you've decided to position yourself in Southeast Asia, and is that where you're seeing the adoption from? You know, is there any hope for Australia?
Yeah, for sure. But I think the thing is, the reason we came here is the market opportunity. We wanted to provide a digital inclusion route for emerging markets. And, you know, less than 40% of people in the region are part of the digital economy. 104 million people are aged between 25 and 34, and you've got 102 million coming up from the 18 to 24 mark. So these are young, tech-savvy, thirsty. There's an emerging middle class structure here. It's harder, of course, because of the language barriers and all the rest of it. But this region and these countries have understood and embraced that, because we can actually start to include people a lot easier. They still have to go to a bank, line up, take a ticket, wait 3 hours to be served, fill out paperwork, wait 5 days to be told whether they've been successful for a loan or not. Whereas what we can do is expedite that process and automate it all. So I think the Asian region has really grasped the concept very well. It's needed here to try and onboard people and to get them into the digital economy. So I think, you know, Aussie company going across to Vietnam and realising the opportunity, we've had to work a lot harder than we would have based in Australia with, you know, our own language set and an environment we're familiar with. But we see the opportunity, and we're very proud to fly the Australian flag over here for sure and certain. And we hope that the Australian companies start to take notice of the inroads that are being made by companies like ours all around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's so much collaboration potential across the region as well. So it's fantastic to see that, particularly from a decentralization standpoint. With that, I just wanted to say too, if anyone has any questions, please pop them in the chat. We'll try and save some time at the end if anyone would like to ask. But with that, I think Ben's given us a great insight into, how some more traditional companies are starting to think about how NFTs and this brand new concept of the metaverse might actually be a new revenue generation opportunity for them and an opportunity to kind of take their business models into a new space. And Louise is joining us. She's from Everledger, a blockchain company, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with. They are certainly, they didn't pop up yesterday. They've actually just celebrated their 6th birthday, which is a really long time in blockchain years. And what they do is it's kind of like a Google of objects that helps its clients trace the origin of things and substantiate the claims that are made about them, which Louise will talk a bit more to in a moment. But Everledger is one of those companies that's been looking at NFTs and thinking, how could this fit into my existing business model, or maybe it could add to my existing suite of products. But Everledger also has a really big focus on sustainability, and NFTs have not been without criticism, particularly in terms of environmental impact. And people have been talking about the energy consumption of minting NFTs, which is very much like the concerns we've all heard before in relation to the energy consumption of proof of work protocols. So Louise, there's a lot to unpack there, but, perhaps you could explain to us a little bit about how Everledger is approaching these opportunities and challenges. What sort of considerations do you have to make if you actually start to think about getting into this brand new space?
Thank you, Leah. So I think, yes, there's a lot to absorb and we don't nearly have enough time, but Everledger is in the business of tracking digital assets and supply chains and effectively creating digital twins of real world things. So we've known for a long time that that is of value and that they are instruments that have a certain purpose and that they are, tradable, certainly collectible as NFTs have proven, and that they enable at times you to do things, whether that's, derive a financial instrument or create an underlying relationship and move things about, in fact, a whole lot faster than if you are relying on real world shipping, etc. So for us, as we are in the spaces of diamonds and gemstones and luxury and art and wine and spirits and all of these great things, definitely there is a market there to codify these things through non-fungible means. Now, for us also, what we've been really concerned with is the traceability of greenhouse gas emissions and claims that a company may wish to make about the sustainability and ethics of production of these real world items. So for us, I think whether it's the utilization of blockchain or the codification into NFTs, we don't want to be a part of the challenge that we're also seeing about energy consumption and resulting in enhanced emissions, etc. So Leah, you mentioned Beeple right at the start. That alone leaves a very complex legacy of greenhouse gas emissions. Some calculators would say, $5,000 plus per NFT to offset, and have codified things like Space Cat, which is a NFT of a cat in a rocket headed to the moon, as the equivalent of the EU residents' energy consumption for 2 months for an average EU resident. We know that there is energy consumption concerns, particularly when a lot of NFTs are being coded in an Ethereum network, and an Ethereum itself, of course, because of the proofs that you talked about, has a large energy consumption, I think, in the order of the nation of Libya, again, depending on whose stats you read. So I think NFTs, blockchain, etc., none of these things are inherently good or bad. And I think codifying out our environmental footprint in them is kind of like the taking a flight, and paying for your emissions as a rider in that airplane. And to what extent, are you would that plane have flown anyway, and those emissions been incurred anyway, but in mass, are we amplifying out the challenges of environmental degradation on account of so many planes taking off? So I think all I would call out at this point is whilst we are in early stages of design of business models, design of technology applications, and we are forging a pathway, now is the time to be bringing in the environmental design concerns into the conversation and into the design space. So how can you look at doing what we do, codifying out digital twins and enabling our customers to create NFTs, and doing it in a way that is environmentally sustainable. So I think my encouragement today would be that the hot economics of the space is certainly creating a big rush towards it, and I think the challenge is not limited to NFTs. The challenge of environmental degradation spans many industries, many applications, technical or not. But now is the time, with the likes of these technologies, I think, to take account of these things so that we can design for a sustainable application of these in future.
I couldn't agree more, Louise. I think this is a really important conversation to be had. And I love that you note that many industries are struggling with energy consumption issues. So, I only hope that it actually facilitates a much broader and holistic discussion around sustainability within society, rather than just sort of tacking on to the latest and greatest thing that's in the news headlines. But I think what is pretty cool, if we're talking about solutions, is that Immutable X in Australia, I believe they're actually aiming to be carbon neutral. Kieran, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Illuvium is actually built on Immutable X. Maybe you could talk to why you chose Immutable X for your platform.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a number of reasons. They're actually also an Australian company as well, which is pretty cool. But in terms of the sustainability issue, they are at the forefront of that. They heard a bunch of noise early on this year around NFTs, and it's true that they do take they do congest the network of Ethereum up a lot more than other ERC tokens, and so they have they've come out with their platform being 100% carbon neutral. And they inherently do it anyway by using ZK rollups, which essentially just bunches up a whole bunch of transactions and makes it much more efficient on to mint these NFTs. But also, they plan to buy a bunch of carbon neutral credits in order to, on top of doing that, to ensure that literally their own marketplace and any secondary marketplace that is built, which we're going to have an Illuvium marketplace, which is launching later this year, but that's going to allow literally any NFT that is minted on Immutable to remain carbon neutral, which we think is super cool. But obviously as well, the other reasons we chose Immutable are that the extremely fast transaction speeds and the zero minting costs and no gas fees. That in gaming is utterly essential.
Yeah, and I think that's fascinating. And as you say, it's really fantastic to know that that innovation is coming out of Australia. And it's great too that Louise has mentioned this, this difficult conversation that we have, not just about NFTs, but as I said before, proof of work protocols as well. But it's interesting, isn't it? I think when you do get that kind of pressure, you're kind of forced to find solutions to be more environmentally sustainable. And that's probably also why we see things like Bitcoin miners popping up against next to hydroelectric plants, for example. And, we're seeing industries like that take off in places like Georgia, where they've actually got more renewable energy in their country than they can possibly consume. So I think it is a really positive discussion to have overall. And as I said, hopefully something that will become more holistic. Oh, we have a question. I'm so excited. So Debris is asking to all panelists, are the NFTs minted on Immutable X minted on the blockchain, or is there an extra minting gas fee when moving to layer 1? Yeah,
so that is one limitation. So what we're trying to do is have people remain on our layer 2 solution. And so we're keeping our fees very competitive. But to answer the question, yes, if you move back to L1 and you decide to sell it on our NFTs on OpenSea or Rarible or whatever, then yes, that is subject to additional gas fees for moving it across.
Thank you. I don't think we have any more questions. Would any of our panelists like to add anything to any of the discussions that we've just had now? Closing.
Yeah, just like to say thank you very much for having a dedicated session especially for Australians' views on NFTs. I think it is, even though it might not have come alive so much in the Australian sector just yet, we've got some pretty powerful voices and some pretty powerful people doing some good stuff in the global landscape. So thanks for giving us the opportunity to address the Australian audience.
Yeah, we really do. I got to say, when I mentioned to Steve Vallis, I think you should do a dedicated NFTs panel. He was thinking about putting it with DeFi as well. I said, no, we've got to do NFTs on their own. But it was awesome digging into it and just seeing how many talented people there are in this landscape. Australia really is leading the way in NFTs. Closing thoughts, Kieran?
Yeah, same thing. Really appreciate you guys branching it out so we could have our own discussion around NFTs. I only think they're going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Obviously, I'm quite biased on NFTs, but I think, yeah, the general population is slowly starting to realize that, digital assets can be a valuable thing.
They're playing the cinematic music and kicking us off. But just want to say thank you so much, everybody. And let's continue the conversation on Twitter.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much.
See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.